Hello, greetings. Welcome to Attaining the Second Cognition. This is Doug Michael. Thank you once again for joining me, ladies and gentlemen. A few weeks back in the video presentations, Fabian Theosophy and Fake Gurus and the addendum to that piece called the Auroville Challenge, we presented my viewers with a challenge of sorts regarding the information we provided on the town Auroville in India. In the video, we made a few observations and gave you a list of questions that we asked ourselves before we began researching the topic. And in this video, we're going to share with you more of our observations and what we discovered in researching the concept of this town. Before I get started, I want to thank everyone that took the challenge and conducted their own research into this and shared their perspectives on this idea and what they gleaned from the research. There were some really great observations and some excellent research done, and we thank you for taking the time to participate. Some of the comments on the Auroville Challenge comment thread are just fantastic, so thank you, one and all. As a refresher, we posted a link to an article on a website. The article is titled, "In This Amazing City, People Live Without Politics, No Religion, and No Money," and the article is about a city in India named Auroville. According to the article, the city was the brainchild of a woman named Mira Alfassa, referred to as Mother, which was founded in 1968, and the city was designed as a utopia and self-sustaining living for the people that lived there. According to this article, there is no politics, no religion, and no money involved with this city. In just 2 minutes, a quick Google search blew a hole in this article and shows that the article is total theosophical sensationalist BS. According to multiple sources, Mira's idea for this society was to be a way of life for all humans, free from politics, religion, and nationalities, so everyone could live peaceful lives. Now, this is a great idea in concept, but when you scratch below the surface of the creation and manifestation of the idea, things are not as they would appear, especially not as it was stated in the article. Mira had an intimate association and partnership with Sri Aurobindo, a Hindu yogi, and together they started the Sri Aurobindo Ashram in 1926, well before Auroville was brought into fruition. It is from the name Sri Aurobindo that the Oro part of the name originates. It is also mentioned that Mira had a close association with Max Theon, a known occultist and rumored teacher to Helena Blavatsky, the founder of Theosophy. Sri Aurobindo had close associations with the early Theosophists, but he also criticized much of their work, professing greater occult knowledge in the hands of the Hindu yogis. Apparently, his ego rebelled at the idea that Westerners such as Blavatsky or Annie Besant were qualified enough to serve as spiritual teachers to traditions that were almost 6,000 years old. What my viewers have to understand in this shell game of deception is that misdirection is a major factor in hiding the actions of the Theosophical Fabian networks. In order to keep most of the human race confused, they play a game of dividing and finger-pointing to keep people from ever figuring out what's actually going on. Examples of this type of finger-pointing can be found with Jita Krishnamurti, who was being groomed to be the Theosophists' world teacher, their Maitreya, until he suddenly had an attack of conscience and allegedly walked away from Theosophy. Jita became a guru in his own right, continuing to promote theosophically oriented teachings to his followers, but now not an active part of the Theosophical Global Network, at least not on the surface. We see a similar split with Theosophy by Rudolf Steiner, who created the philosophy of anthroposophy. After their superficial split with Theosophy, both Krishnamurti and Steiner continued to peddle the divine, so despite the superficial parting of the ways, they were still selling the principles of the Theosophical divine to their followers. With the modern development of transpersonal psychology, Sri Aurobindo holds a central place as this latest fringe branch of psychological manipulation seeks to return the field of psychology to its esoteric and mystical roots created by the Society for Psychical Research. Aurobindo developed what is called Integral Yoga Psychology, or IYP. Through the IYP, we find Aurobindo's interpretations of Huxley's perennial philosophy at the core of the psycho-spiritual practice of yoga that he devised and that has been imported to the West at the hands of the Theosophists. What my viewers need to take away from these observations is that regardless of the seeming distance between the many doctrinaires and theosophy, the core tenets of theosophy drive their agendas, and Auroville is no exception. Contrary to what some may believe about theosophy, it is not a single religious doctrine. Theosophy thrives by pushing the belief that all religions are equal at their core, but only theosophy provides the glue which holds all these diverse, inorganic created religious and esoteric doctrines together under one umbrella. The Aryan consortium knew that humanity could not be forced into a single religious doctrine, so their Great White Brotherhood instructed them to fold all these religions under one seemingly unifying banner called theosophy. Theosophy professes that all religions hold core elements of truth, but that these alleged truths have been overshadowed with faulty doctrines, and the core is simply occulted or hidden. It is only the esoteric traditions that hold the keys to the ancient inorganic wisdom, and only they who are ultimately suited to guide humanity through the realm of confusion in order to find the real inorganic truth hidden in all the world's religions. Seriously, ladies and gentlemen, can you really believe this shit? Yet this is exactly what the consortium handlers want people to believe. Theosophy can offer no genuine doctrine of its own, so it has to subsume other traditions and bend the interpretations of these religions and mystical traditions to the will of their ascended inorganic controllers. You have to remember that in the Aryan scheme of racial superiority, that only they are humans and the rest of humanity is simply cattle. So when you see their doctrines about the unity of the human race, they aren't talking about us regular folks. They are only talking about the race of Aryan humanity who need to come together and harmonize their differences so they can ultimately rule the billions of human cattle on the planet. They use politics, they use psychology as a weapon, they use words with twisted and hidden meanings as a weapon, they use their bullshit, inorganic hive, divine dependency as a weapon, and all the while, the average person in the street continues to be deceived by their double entendre wordplay and psychological manipulation. This will only continue so long as humanity as a whole, not the Aryan version of humanity, can remove themselves from these fabricated illusions and truly wake up from this first cognition superficial nightmare of psychological manipulation. I didn't do a whole lot of extensive research to find this information, and I'm sure more in-depth research would yield more theosophical ties directly to Mira Alfassa, but we've searched enough to see that regardless of whether Alfassa was an active member of the Theosophical Society or not, Theosophy ended up with its hands all over Auroville. Auroville is a recognized and protected entity of UNESCO, United Nations Organization for Education, Science, and Culture. And ladies and gentlemen, that alone speaks volumes. We all know the United Nations is another brainchild organization of the Theosophical Society. There are 4 primary tenets of Auroville, and they are: Auroville belongs to nobody in particular. Auroville belongs to humanity as a whole. But to live in Auroville, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. Auroville will be the place of an unending education, of constant progress, and a youth that never ages. Auroville wants to be the bridge between the past and the future, taking advantage of all discoveries from within and from without. Auroville will boldly spring towards future realizations. Auroville will be a site of material and spiritual researches for a living embodiment of an actual human unity. In the first tenet alone, one must be a willing servitor of the divine consciousness. We find the core teaching straight out of Theosophy. The divine consciousness, as discussed in Externalization of the Hierarchy, is the Great White Brotherhood, the inorganic hive of ascended so-called masters. Here we go again, ladies and gentlemen, people begging to be servants to the divine hive Cosa Nostra. You cannot be a sovereign individual and a servant at the same time. They are 2 diametrically opposed concepts. Part of the rules in being a permanent resident of Auroville is that residents must volunteer 5 hours a day to work in the community and spend the rest of their daily time in meditation or going within. Remember, in Theosophy, they really push meditation, and the altered state of meditation is a prime opportunity for manipulation by the inorganic hive masters. In the 4th tenet, Auroville will be a site of material and spiritual researches for a living embodiment of an actual human unity. If you are one of those who researched this material for yourself, did you ask yourself what human unity is? Did you take the time to look up human unity? If you did, more than likely you found the website humanity.org. If you think this organization doesn't have a tie to theosophy, then ask yourself why one of the former UN Secretary Generals is one of the signers of the Declaration of Human Unity. You can also ask yourself why the professed Marxist Dalai Lama is also a signer right next to a theosophist. A few questions we asked you to ponder were, how did the inhabitants of the city get there? Were they chosen or did they volunteer? If they were chosen, what was the deciding factor? According to our research, when Mira was still alive, she chose the inhabitants of Auroville by looking them in the eye and allegedly reading their soul. A simple nod of yes from this theosophical mother allowed these people entry. A headshake of no meant they could not become Aurovillians. In the current day, there seems to be a process to becoming an Aurovillian, and the process entails an application, detailed background checks, surrender of one's life savings in the form of a donation, as well as being confined to the compound for 2 years without leaving. Then, upon review by their committee, the choice as to whether you can remain and become an Aurovillian or be forced to leave is at their sole discretion. I found a number of articles that detailed accounts of several people being refused citizenship status at the end of the 2 years without an explanation. Naturally, none of these people ever got their financial donations to this theosophical UNESCO-supported cause refunded. How blissfully utopian. It is easy to forget the material you've researched when you run across information that sounds good and sounds hopeful for humanity as a whole, because deep inside we all want the tyrannical Aryan bullshit to stop and have some peace. But when you remember the tenets of Marxism and Fabianism, then you remember that theosophy is the conjoined twin of Fabianism, and that they are the ones pushing some kind of utopia at the direction of the Great White Brotherhood. How hopeful is the idea really? How pristine is the idea when religious homogenization and world domination is the motivation behind these ideologies? The article claimed that Auroville has no money, but you will find in quite a few other sources that shows that this is simply not true. In our research, we found that Auroville uses electronic deposits for its members and utilizes a debit card system called the Auro card. In order to make transactions and purchases in Auroville, people have to purchase Auro cards that must naturally be purchased with money, like pre-funded debit cards. The villagers also accept cash, and the Indian government donates $200,000 annually to the city each year, as well as the city accepting private donations to keep this theosophical charade alive and functioning. There were also articles by journalists that were unable to find out how the monies are handled there from lack of cooperation from the administrative type bureaucracy they have in lieu of a formal government, and that many of the merchants would not accept the debit card but would only accept cash. You see, ladies and gentlemen, it is all about money and control, and they control the money that they bilk out of the pockets of the gullible. It's reported that there was so much infighting and financial chicanery with the original theosophical management at Auroville that some members sought intervention from the Indian government to stop the bureaucratic abuses being perpetrated by the Auroville system of bureaucratic government to the detriment of the lower-level members of the community. This was eventually settled by lawsuits where the Indian government finally had to step in and stop the fraud being perpetrated, and the governmental structure had to be redesigned to facilitate the state's intervention into the affairs of Auroville. So much for the lie about the magical theosophical city of Auroville not having any politics. Don't forget to put on your emerald glasses before you step through the gate and pick up your Auro card. In addition, the article claims that there is no religion, but I ask you this: how is it that theosophy, the religion, according to its founder, Madame Blavatsky, has its hands all over it without there being some type of religious association? Why is there an ashram paved in gold panels? It is referred to as the meditation chamber. It is a giant dome lined with gold plates. Who paid for that? An ashram, by definition, is a place of religious retreat for Hindus, and it was the vision of a yogi and his divine mother consciousness that created it. Saying there is no religion in this community is like saying there is no salt in the sea because it is water. The dependence on the divine is religion, folks, no matter how you try to make it otherwise or explain it away. I know that lately we've gotten into really tearing apart most things that people hold dear in this reality, but you cannot create a new and better reality off of the hopes and wishes of a hopelessly broken reality. You cannot imagine something better when your perceptions have been molded by an idea of something better that is not really something better in actuality. Enclaves like Auroville, and I'm sure there is more than one on this planet, are nothing but social engineering projects and arenas for psychological studies and energetic harnessing. Theosophy is known for conducting these kinds of experiments outside of public purview by wrapping it in a large box with pretty wrapping paper and confetti ribbons for our visual pleasure. You can place two identical sized boxes in front of people. One of them is wrapped in pretty paper and the other is just a box with no wrapping. Sadly, most humans these days would choose the box with the pretty wrapping paper because of how pretty it is, and it doesn't matter if the box is empty or if it has a bomb in it. This is the human psyche in the first cognition, and the Fabian theosophists know this. This is why they paint everything with pretty words and cater to your emotions to get you to accept their ideas so they can tell you what to experience and what to perceive. All the while, they are not presenting anything of substance or value to expand your perceptions, awareness, and consciousness. Even though you might perceive it as having positive attributes, which is more valuable, hard-won freedom or comfortable slavery? Cognitive freedom is hard-won. It is not given away freely, even though it is our birthright. But the ideas that people have about what it is to learn themselves, from the inside out, to find their soika and expand their awareness, is not very well portrayed in these old religious doctrines or the theosophical New Age bullshit. You do not have to run away to a fake ashram and shuck everything in your life to get to know you. You do not have to meditate for hours a day in order to go within and get to know you. You do not have to live in squalor or without creature comforts to alter your perceptions, and you do not have to feel guilt or explain your lifestyle of simple living in comfort to anyone else to prove you are a cognitively aware human being. As we keep sharing in our work, you have everything you need within yourself to discover who you are. When you claim your power and own your sovereignty and stop giving your consciousness away to ancient ideas of servitude that have never in all of human history altered humanity as a whole in a positive manner, you can free your consciousness and begin to think and perceive without the filters the consortium wants you to use to determine this reality, your reality. A place like Auroville is a good concept in theory. If it truly was free from politics, free from religion, and free from greed, it would be pretty cool to give it a shot. But first cognition will never allow a place like that to function and thrive until enough people pull themselves out of the first cognition in order to make it successful. Not everyone has the capabilities to be a farmer, or a seamstress, or a musician, or a baker. Not everyone has the mental or physical constitution to live without electricity or in extreme heat without harm to their physical form. Not everyone has the desire, or the need for that matter, to meditate all day every day. And honestly, who really has the time to devote to such pursuits? None of these things are what defines a spiritual person, but this is what Theosophy would have you believe is what makes a person spiritual and enlightened. This definition of spirituality is only the pale shadow fabricated by the inorganic hierarchy passing itself off as spirituality throughout the ages. It is loaded with hooks of dependency and first cognition desires of self-aggrandizement, and it will never lead to any kind of real peace because there is always some first cognition bureaucratic hierarchy to force their brand of peace down your throat. Look at any religion on the planet and you will always find a top-down oriented system of tyranny where the average person always finds themselves at the bottom of some religious pyramid subject to the whims of priests, imams, gurus, or shamans who are ultimately more qualified to tell you how you should live your life than you are. Cognitive and perceptual advancement can only be achieved with intent. Actually, intent and fortitude are the only two factors from a higher level of perceptual awareness that can and will bring about conscious expansion and perceptual advancement, but it takes unbending internal strength to keep the momentum moving forward. It doesn't matter if you eat vegetables or a rack of lamb, or both at the same time. It doesn't matter if you wear tank tops and flip-flops or a $5,000 business suit. It doesn't matter if you live in a sprawling 4-bedroom house or a 500-square-foot apartment. It doesn't matter if your job is as an attorney or a fast food worker. None of these perceptions or life choices define your psyche, nor do they define anyone else's. Our videos are attempting to provide you with the tools to see beyond the superficial perceptions, to question bullshit articles about a magical city with no politics, no money, and no religion, and see the shit for the despicable propaganda that it is. The Aryan Theosophical Fabian Network is global in scope, and it is highly diversified. They control academia, they control the law, they control the puppet show called politics, they control the field of psychology, they control your religions and spiritual desires of escapism and ecstasy. It's just like the beginning of the old Outer Limits TV series. Remember that show, folks? Remember, there is nothing wrong with your television set, so do not attempt to adjust the picture. We are controlling transmission. If we wish to make it louder, we will turn up the volume. If we wish to make it softer, we will tune it to a whisper. We will control the horizontal. We will control the vertical. We can roll the image. We can make it flutter. We can change the focus to a soft blur or sharpen it to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit quietly and we will control all you see and hear. You are about to participate in a great adventure. You are about to experience the awe and mystery which reaches from the inner mind to the outer limits. Welcome to the first cognition superficial reality formulated by the Aryans and their ascended inorganic controllers, ladies and gentlemen, where your every perception is totally controlled through propaganda, misdirection, and meaningless double talk. The television set is an illusion to your perceptual reality, and the Aryan adventure of psychological control doesn't last for only 1 hour. It is the adventure of your life, literally. Don't question the superficial images. Don't balk at their words and doctrines. Just sit quietly and let them fuck with your mind to control your every thought. In this adventure of the perceptual outer limits, we're going to take you to a mysterious city that has no politics, no money, and no religion. Welcome to Auroville. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for taking the time to listen to Attaining the Second Cognition. It's greatly appreciated. I extend my gratitude and my deepest thanks to any and to all who take the time to open their mind, search for the truth, and to push forward in their own conscious advancement and willful evolution. Thanks so much once again. This is Doug Michael, and until next time, walk in peace.